She didn't come to play. She came prepared, fiery, and unapologetically bold. Jasmine Crockett walked into that Senate hearing like a storm, and when Senator John Kennedy tried to corner her with slick Southern charm and loaded questions, he wasn't ready. What happened next? A savage comeback so powerful, so sharp, it left the entire room silent, and him, speechless. If you're tired of watching powerful women being interrupted, underestimated, and talked over, this moment is for you. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unfiltered political drama, power moments, and real talk from the most electrifying voices in American politics. You might have seen her face before, but now, the whole country is talking. Jasmine Crockett is not just a name trending on social media. She is a force. A bold voice rising from Texas, making the halls of Congress shake one word at a time. She did not come from political royalty. She came from real work. Jasmine started as a civil rights attorney. In the courtroom, she fought for people who had no power, no voice, and no shot unless someone like her stood in the gap. She did not just talk about justice. She chased it down. Her legal skills are sharp, but her delivery cuts even deeper. That is what makes her different. While others read from scripts, Jasmine speaks from her gut, and people feel it. Whether she is in a courtroom or sitting before a packed congressional committee, her presence is impossible to ignore. Then she ran for office and won. Now she serves as a U.S. representative from Texas's 30th district. That win was not handed to her. She earned every vote. And once she got to Washington, she did not become part of the furniture. She flipped the table. What makes Jasmine Crockett so magnetic? It is the fire. She says what others are afraid to say. She does not sugarcoat. She does not dodge. When pressure hits, she leans in harder. People may not always agree with her, but they respect that she shows up ready to battle with facts, receipts, and that signature Texas grit. Lately, she has been everywhere. Viral videos, cable news segments, podcast clips. If you are on TikTok or YouTube, you have probably seen her stare down someone twice her age and twice as loud and still come out on top. That is the Crockett effect. She does not just argue. She delivers blow after blow with calm, calculated precision. So why was she at this hearing? What brought Jasmine Crockett face to face with Senator John Kennedy? It all started with a heist investigation. Emotions were running high. The usual power players were in the room, ready to throw political punches, but they did not expect her. Jasmine was invited to give legal testimony. What happened next? Nobody saw coming, and if you think that was something, wait until you see what she said. Before we dive into the moment that left Senator Kennedy speechless, make sure you hit that subscribe button. This story is just getting started, and you will not want to miss what comes next. Ready? Let us get into the showdown. The room was tense, cameras were rolling. Lawmakers were locked in a high-stakes hearing about voting rights and civil liberties. Jasmine Crockett was there as one of the few voices pushing back against efforts to restrict access and control narratives. But then came a moment no one saw coming. Senator John Kennedy leaned forward with that trademark smirk. He had been waiting for this. You could see it in the way he twirled his pen and looked directly at her. His voice was calm, but the words were loaded. He said, "Miss Crockett, do you even understand the Constitution, or are you just here to make noise?" The room fell silent. Even seasoned reporters held their breath. This was not just a question. It was a jab, a challenge, an invitation to a verbal fight. And Jasmine Crockett knew exactly what it was. She leaned forward, her hands steady, her expression sharp but composed. There was no panic in her eyes, only focus. She had faced far worse in courtrooms across Texas. This was familiar ground, and Kennedy had no idea what he had just stepped into. People watching live began pulling out their phones. Staffers in the room glanced at each other. It was the kind of moment where you know something unforgettable is about to happen. Senator Kennedy tried again. He added, "Because frankly, the way you speak makes it hard to take your arguments seriously." And there it was. The line that crossed the line. A disrespectful jab not just at her politics but at her identity, her voice, her presence. But Jasmine did not flinch. She smiled. Not out of politeness, but because she knew what was coming next would leave a mark. Before we get into that epic reply, the one that made headlines and had Twitter erupt, make sure you subscribe. Hit that button so you never miss moments like this, where power meets courage and the tables turn in real time. Back to the hearing. Jasmine took a deep breath. She locked eyes with Senator Kennedy, and then she gave him the kind of answer that turns hearings into history. An answer that was not just for her. It was for every woman who had been talked over, every black voice that had been silenced, every expert who had been doubted simply because of how they looked or sounded. And in that moment, the dynamic shifted completely. Let us walk through what happened next. Because her comeback was not just powerful, it was personal and unforgettable. The air was raised. Senator Kennedy had just delivered what he thought was a knockout punch, but Jasmine Crockett wasn't rattled. She was ready. She leaned in, slow and deliberate. And then, with clarity, confidence, and conviction. She responded, "Senator, with all due respect, I do understand the Constitution. Probably better than most of the people who've tried to silence my community using it as a weapon." You could hear the ripple across the room. The tone had shifted. She wasn't just replying, she was reclaiming space. And with each word, she did something rare in Washington. She spoke from the gut. For everyone who's ever been told to know their place, Jasmine continued, her voice steady and strong. "Let me remind you, when our country was drafting those sacred papers, people who looked like me weren't even considered human, much less citizens. But now we're here, in this room, on equal footing. That's not noise, Senator, that's progress." Boom. It was no longer a hearing, it was a masterclass, and she wasn't done yet. The Constitution is not your shield against accountability, nor your license to disrespect people who don't sound like you. I swore to uphold it just like you did. The difference is I actually believe in applying it equally. This wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a revelation. Every sentence hit with the force of generations who had waited too long to be heard. Her words weren't just crafted, they were earned. You could see Kennedy's shift in his seat. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Because what do you say when the very foundation of your argument has just been dismantled in under 60 seconds? Twitter lit up. News outlets clipped the exchange within minutes. The phrase, "That's not noise, Senator, that's progress," was trending before the hearing even ended. But the real story wasn't just the comeback, it was what the moment symbolized. Jasmine Crockett had done what so few manage in the political arena. She didn't just win the argument, she flipped the power dynamic. She turned a loaded insult into a spotlight, and she did it without shouting, without theatrics, just truth, delivered with unshakable purpose. By the time she finished, the room wasn't just silent, it was stunned. Because in that single moment, Jasmine Crockett proved that intellect, history, and presence can silence even the loudest voices of doubt. And the best part, this wasn't even the end. Up next, we'll break down how the media reacted, the online firestorm that followed, and how Crockett's moment rewrote the rules of political comebacks forever. But first, have you subscribed yet? If not, now's the time. Hit that button so you never miss another showdown where the underdog flips the script and makes history, because this is just getting started. When Jasmine Crockett finished speaking, it wasn't just the hearing room that fell silent, it was the entire internet holding its breath. Within minutes, clips of her takedown exploded. Across social media, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Threads, Facebook, everywhere. One sentence was being replayed on a loop. "That's not noise, Senator, that's progress." Hashtags like hashtag Crockett clapback, hashtag Jasmine speaks, and hashtag Constitutional Queen started trending within the hour. Major networks rushed to air the clip. MSNBC called it a generational mic drop. CNN called it a moment of reckoning. Even usually quiet pages like CSPAN were seeing millions of new viewers, most of them just wanting to replay that exchange. But it didn't stop there. Commentators from across the aisle had to weigh in. Some called it too bold. Others said it was overdue. But the truth, most Americans, especially younger ones, saw something they rarely feel when watching political hearings. Authenticity. TikTok creators started remixing her speech with music. Activists quoted her words at rallies. Even teachers were discussing her reply in classrooms as a modern example of speaking truth to power. And the numbers, they didn't lie. One clip on X, formerly Twitter, hit 15 million views in a day. Her Instagram followers doubled overnight. Podcasts were dedicating full episodes to the moment. Even international outlets like the BBC and Al Jazeera picked it up, framing it as a pivotal moment in American race and gender politics. But what really stood out, the messages. Thousands of people, especially women of color, flooded Jasmine's inbox and comment sections with support. "You said what we've been screaming for decades. Thank you for showing our daughters what strength looks like. You didn't just defend yourself, you defended all of us." In a world full of viral noise, Crockett's words cut through, because they didn't come from a script, they came from lived truth. And while the internet praised her, others started asking, what's next for Jasmine Crockett? Commentators began speculating, could this moment launch her into national leadership, a Senate run, a VP shortlist? Because what she proved in those few minutes wasn't just poise under pressure. She proved she could lead in the spotlight. She could carry the hopes of millions and not flinch. And maybe, most importantly, she showed that dignity can be just as powerful as outrage. As the online storm swirled, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a viral moment. This was a cultural pivot point, a moment when history, identity, and accountability all met in one voice. And that voice happened to be Jasmine Crockett's, and it made people feel seen. So what happened after the clapback? The world started paying attention, and Jasmine, she didn't just win a debate. She made history echo. Stick around, because in the next section, we'll explore how this moment impacted the broader political landscape, and why some people are still trying to discredit her, even after the mic drop. Spoiler alert, it didn't work the moment Jasmine Crockett stood her ground, and shut down Senator John Kennedy was not just another political exchange, it became something bigger. Social media lit up almost instantly. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, filled with short clips of that exact moment when Crockett delivered her cold, measured comeback. Millions watched, liked, shared, and commented. But it was not just about entertainment. People felt seen, heard, and represented. Supporters across the country praised her clarity and courage. For many black women, especially, Crockett's poise became a powerful symbol. They were tired of watching loud, rude interruptions go unchecked. Crockett did not yell. She did not break down. She stayed calm, used facts, and delivered one of the most composed reality checks Capitol Hill had seen. In a long time, mainstream news outlets covered the exchange. Analysts debated it on morning shows. Some criticized her tone, but the majority praised her for not letting power silence truth. Hashtags like #Crockett clapback and #SheAte started trending. Young activists and political newcomers looked at her performance and felt encouraged to speak up too. She had given them a roadmap how to be fearless without being reckless, but there was something even deeper happening. Crockett's moment showed that being sharp and respectful could still cut through noise. In a political world where yelling often overshadows reasoning, her words landed like a hammer. She reminded the nation that black women in leadership are not just symbols of diversity. They are powerful, capable, and not afraid to hold the line. Within days, her campaign donations saw a surge. Her official site had more traffic than ever. New followers poured in on all platforms. Even celebrities mentioned her moment in interviews. It had touched a nerve and started a conversation. One commentator, on a panel, said, "She turned what could have been another forgettable hearing into a defining moment in modern politics." This was not just viral fame, it was legacy-building. The encounter also revealed how important language is in shaping public memory. John Kennedy, known for his smooth-talking style, met his match, and that match came prepared with knowledge, composure, and a deep sense of justice. Jasmine Crockett did not just win the exchange. She reminded everyone what leadership can look like when intelligence meets courage. Her words will echo far beyond that one room. Because she spoke not only for herself, she spoke for every voice that has been talked over, every woman told to sit down, every leader who has been underestimated. And she did it with style, with fire, with truth. That is how legacies begin. One moment, one answer, one leader refusing to fold. What happened on that stage was more than just a clash of opinions. It was a moment where power shifted, even if just a little. When Jasmine Crockett responded with clarity and fire, she did not just speak for herself. She stood for every woman who has ever been interrupted, dismissed, or spoken over in rooms they worked hard to enter. Especially for black women, that moment echoed something deeper. It echoed years of being told to wait their turn, to tone it down, to smile more, to accept less. It pushed back against a long pattern of systemic disrespect that is often brushed off as just politics. But this was not just politics, it was personal, it was cultural, and it was powerful. Jasmine Crockett took the floor and did not give it back. She did not ask for space, she claimed it. With every word, she reminded everyone watching that representation is not about being present. It is about being heard. It is about refusing to shrink in the face of pressure. It is about showing that grace and strength can exist in the same sentence. Her voice carried more than just a comeback. It carried the weight of history. It told a story of persistence, of knowing your worth, and of refusing to be boxed in by outdated expectations. That moment was not just a viral clip. It was a line in the sand. It showed that when women like Crockett speak up, they change the rhythm of the room, and that shift matters. Not just for her, not just for one debate, but for everyone who is tired of silence being the safe choice. This was a reminder that the floor belongs to those bold enough to stand on it. Jasmine Crockett's fiery moment did more than just light up the room. It lit a fire in people across the country. Progressives saw her as a new kind of fighter. Independents started paying closer attention, drawn not just by what she said, but by how boldly she said it. There was something real in her voice, something many feel has been missing for too long. Kennedy's office tried to respond, but it was vague and hollow, a statement about respecting differing opinions and focusing on unity. But the truth was, the moment had already passed them. The spotlight was no longer on control. It was on courage. Jasmine's message to young activists was clear. Do not shrink. Speak your truth, even when it shakes the room. Especially then, because that moment was more than just a comeback. It was a blueprint for how to rise, how to stand firm, and how to never let anyone take your voice.